Tonight, we venture deep into the forgotten back roads of America, places where the light fades and only tales remain, clinging to existence like shadows in the night. Hidden within the hills, rivers, and abandoned towns lie stories extracted from witness accounts, police reports, and archived broadcasts. These accounts have been verified, documented, and preserved, bound together by their shared mystique. Our journey takes us to Highway 191, a lifeline through the heart of the Navajo Nation. This unassuming stretch of asphalt has borne witness to more than its share of the inexplicable. The radio transmissions intercepted by police dispatch paint a picture of encounters that challenge logic and defy reason. Tonight, we delve into these officially recorded incidents, encounters that linger unanswered, emanating an aura of enigma from one of the most mysterious highways in America. The Navajo people have long spoken of entities said to traverse the veil between worlds. But what unfolds when these ancient beliefs converge with the stark realities of modern policing? The recordings we explore tonight, corroborated by multiple sources, remain as puzzling now as they were when first captured. Spanning the desolate stretches between Window Rock, Ganado, and the serpentine paths near Chinle, Highway 191 has earned a reputation as a corridor rife with eerie reports and unsettling encounters. We begin with one such story, a midnight account from late November 2016. Elelana Yazi had served as a dispatcher for the Navajo Nation police for 7 years. By this time, she had become attuned to the rhythm of the graveyard shift. The reservation sprawled over vast, sparsely populated terrain, with Highway 191 acting as its primary thoroughfare. Elelana knew these roads intimately, every mile marker, every remote community, every code associated with responding units etched into her memory. That night began like any other. Her shift started at 10 p.m., accompanied by the low hum of servers and the occasional radio chatter from officers on patrol. The high desert air had taken on an unusually sharp chill for November, with temperatures dipping into the 30s, as twilight surrendered to night. By 11:47 p.m., it was clear that this would not be an ordinary night. Elelana was logging a routine traffic stop when another incoming call lit up her console. Switching channels instinctively, she pressed the record button and spoke with seasoned composure. "Navajo Nation Police, what is your emergency?" On the other end of the line was a man whose voice cracked under strain and breathlessness. "Something's chasing me," he said without preamble, his words quick and panicked. He was on Highway 191, just past the turnoff to Crystal. In the background, Elelana could hear the roar of an engine pushed hard, punctuated by the screech of tires skidding across asphalt. "Sir," she asked steadily, "can you describe what's chasing you?" It's not human," he stammered between labored breaths. "It's running alongside my car. I've never seen anything move like this." Elelana glanced at the clock. 11:49 p.m., jotting down notes as she listened intently. The man's terror was audible in his voice as he tried to form coherent sentences. He described a creature keeping pace with his speeding car, even as he floored the accelerator to over 80 miles per hour. "It's dark," he managed to say, his words trembling with fear. "But when my headlights hit it, it's tall, too tall. The proportions are wrong." Through the line came a rhythmic pounding noise. Thud, thud, thud. Something or someone was striking the side of his vehicle with force. As Elelana continued to document his panicked account, she found herself caught between duty and dread, standing at the edge of yet another mystery on a highway known for far too many. He checked his watch and froze. The hands read 11:42 a.m. Over 4 hours had passed since he last glanced at the time. Rodriguez stared at his logbook, heart pounding as he flipped back to his last recorded note. 6:15 a.m. at the Navajo Nation boundary. Wondering if he'd accidentally fallen asleep at the wheel, he inspected his rig for signs of an accident, but everything appeared intact. There were no skid marks on the road, no dents or scratches on the truck. The cargo was secure. He couldn't explain why he had no memory of the past several hours, nor how he'd ended up miles further down the road without remembering the drive. Pushing aside his unease, Rodriguez started the truck and resumed his route, though something felt undeniably off. The radio hissed with static, no matter how many stations he tried. The air in the cab seemed oddly heavy, pressing against him like a weight he couldn't push off. Even the sunlight seemed wrong, its intensity brighter and harsher than what he remembered. He passed through Gennaro without seeing another vehicle or person, which in itself wasn't entirely unusual. But a nagging sense of being watched settled in his gut. About 15 minutes down the road, Rodriguez saw something ahead, a figure standing at the edge of his peripheral vision. At first he thought it was a hitchhiker, or someone stranded, but as he drew closer, the figure's proportions didn't seem right. It was taller than any human should be, its limbs too long, its stance unnaturally rigid. A chill wormed its way up his spine, despite the stifling heat in the cab. When Rodriguez passed by the figure, he dared a glance in his rearview mirror, but saw nothing. His chest tightened, and his knuckles turned white as he gripped the steering wheel. Nothing about this stretch of road felt familiar anymore, despite his years of experience here. Trees that never existed before now lined a portion of the highway. Strange shapes appeared in the distance, flickering and disappearing as quickly as they came. Rodriguez turned off the radio and found himself driving in silence, except for the hum of his engine and what sounded like faint whispers outside, indistinct but persistent. By the time Rodriguez arrived in Gallup well past his delivery window, he was visibly shaken. He struggled to explain himself to the warehouse manager, stammering about time and strange sights on the highway. He pulled out his logbook again to verify his timing, only to find scrawled marks between 6:15 a.m. and 11:42 a.m., marks he swore he hadn't written. They didn't resemble his handwriting at all, jagged and erratic loops forming symbols instead of words. After handing over his shipment and hastily leaving the location, Rodriguez made a decision. This would be his last trip along Highway 191. Whatever had happened during those missing hours was not something he cared to revisit or unravel. But in the weeks that followed, haunting questions crept into the corners of his mind. What had he seen on that deserted stretch of road, and what had seen him? Miles away, another dispatcher answered a trembling voice on the other end of an emergency call. A young woman whispered frantically into her phone about shadows moving in her headlights and strange figures just ahead on Highway 191. And much like Eleanor before her, the dispatcher marked this one for follow-up under an unassuming label, their files slowly growing heavier with stories that no one could explain, but no one daring to call mere coincidence. By 11:42 a.m., Miguel Rodriguez found himself gripped by a disorienting realization. Nearly 4.5 hours had passed, yet to him they felt like fleeting moments. His logbook contained no entries beyond 7:30 a.m., though he had somehow covered over 200 miles of highway. He likened the sensation to waking from a deep, unshakable sleep. Strangely, his truck remained undamaged. The fuel gauge reflected normal consumption for the distance traveled, and there were no signs of mechanical failure. Yet deep down, Rodriguez knew something profound had shifted during those missing hours. When he called his dispatcher to provide an update, the response was unsettling. The dispatcher, audibly perplexed, informed him they had been trying to reach him for hours. Rodriguez had missed his 9 a.m. check-in. Confused, he had no memory of receiving any calls. Later, as he delved into the truck's GPS records, a new mystery surfaced. The data revealed that his vehicle had remained stationary for nearly 3 hours at mile marker 463, its engine idling but entirely immobile. Rodriguez could not recall having stopped at all. The oddness of it all compelled him to return to mile marker 463 on his next northbound trip. But nothing about the stretch of Highway 191 raised any alarms, a flat span of road flanked by nothing more than desert scrub and distant mesas. Afterward, Rodriguez confided only in his wife. She noticed changes in him following the incident. He spoke less, grew more pensive, and frequently stared off into the distance, as though listening for something imperceptible to her. Officially, the incident went into his logbook as a case of microsleep caused by fatigue. But in his gut, Rodriguez held on to the certainty that something far stranger had transpired on that barren stretch of Highway 191. Fast forward to just after midnight, on a frigid January night in 2019, Officer Charlene Johnson of the Navajo Nation Police Department was performing her routine patrol along the same highway. As her spotlight swept over the shoulder near mile marker 389, it caught sight of something out of place, a late-model sedan parked at an awkward angle, its headlights beaming into the darkness. Pulling her patrol car in behind it, she observed that the sedan's engine was running, but noted no sign of its driver. With her flashlight in hand, Johnson approached the vehicle cautiously. The driver's side door gaped half open, and the cabin appeared empty save for a smartphone on the passenger seat and a steaming cup of coffee in the center console. The keys remained in the ignition, painting a scene that suggested the driver had intended only to step away briefly. Yet nothing stirred in the surrounding desert night. No crunch of footsteps or faint outline of someone approaching. Running a check on the license plate revealed that the car belonged to Sarah Bay, a 42-year-old teacher from Shiprock, who had been reported missing by her husband just 6 hours earlier. Bay had last been seen leaving a faculty meeting in Window Rock on her way home, a journey that had taken a grim and mysterious turn. Realizing the gravity of what she'd stumbled upon, Officer Johnson secured the scene and called for backup. Highway 191 already carried a reputation for bizarre and inexplicable events, rendering routine procedural steps insufficient. As she waited for support to arrive, Johnson conducted a cursory sweep of the immediate area. Besides desert scrub and faint outlines of the Chusca Mountains in the moonlight, she found nothing noteworthy. An eerie silence blanketed the terrain, no hint of insects or wildlife typically active in the high desert night. When fellow officers arrived and widened the search radius into the surrounding rugged landscape, they found neither footprints nor signs of a struggle. The only anomaly was a set of peculiar impressions in the dirt, roughly 50 yards from Bay's car. Circular markings formed an inexplicable geometric pattern, one none of them could immediately identify. Strangely, these marks appeared to exist in isolation. No tracks or disruptions in the surrounding soil hinted at how they came to be. Photos were taken of the site as evidence before night overtook their efforts. The case notes recorded an unnerving observation made by Officer Johnson. Throughout the search, she wrestled with an inexplicable sensation of being watched. Though she could discern no source for this unsettling feeling, Sarah Bay was never found. Her disappearance would later be folded into a growing number of odd and unsolved cases catalogued as Highway 191 abandonments. Each followed an eerily similar pattern: vehicles left running by roadsides, personal belongings abandoned inside, drivers inexplicably gone without so much as a trace. Confronted with these increasingly bizarre mysteries, law enforcement agencies within the Four Corners region struggled for answers and began treating Highway 191 as more than just another 7 cases remain unsolved to this day, each shrouded in mystery, with possible explanations spanning from abduction to voluntary disappearance. Yet investigators often speak in hushed tones about recurring patterns that defy conventional understanding. Vehicles consistently found facing east, personal belongings arranged in deliberate formations, and circular impressions appearing farther away from the roadside with each case. One such investigator, Officer Johnson, now a sergeant, continues her patrol along that particular stretch of highway. She openly admits to feeling unease whenever her route takes her past mile marker 389 after nightfall. In the sweltering summer of 2020, the Four Corners region experienced a record-breaking heat wave. That July, the Mitchell family, John and Lisa along with their children ages 8 and 11, set out on a road trip from Phoenix to Denver for a family reunion. Their journey took them north along Highway 191, cutting through the arid Navajo Nation landscape. It was mid-afternoon on a Saturday when their SUV began to overheat, forcing John to pull over just beyond. The turnoff for Canyon Dell, steam billowed from the hood as he quickly discovered a ruptured radiator hose, a problem compounded by their location in a cellular dead zone and the complete absence of passing cars. With temperatures spiking at 105 degrees Fahrenheit, the family rationed their limited supply of snacks and bottled water while John attempted to assess the damage. Meanwhile, Lisa's gaze drifted toward the parched environment, where something struck her as deeply unnatural. The desert seemed to shimmer in a way that didn't align with heat mirages she had seen before. She pointed at the rust-red rock formations in the distance, telling John that the colors looked wrong, almost as if they were shifting. John dismissed it as nothing more than an optical effect caused by the blistering heat and focused his attention on the engine. Inside the SUV, the children grew restless. They complained about an unsettling humming noise that only they seemed able to hear. "It sounds like a song," her 8-year-old said hesitantly, adding after a pause, "But it's sad." Lisa couldn't shake her growing unease. Though she struggled to pinpoint its source, the surrounding silence was so absolute that even the insects had gone quiet. As 2 hours dragged by without any sign of help, the sun began its descent, bathing the desert in stunning hues of orange and violet. Just then, Lisa noticed something peculiar. Far off on the horizon, a procession of lights moved with uncanny precision. They weren't aircraft. Their trajectory was too fluid, their formation too synchronized. Even John, who had served in the Air Force and knew all manner of aerial vehicles, was left stumped. "I've never seen anything like that before," he admitted softly as he shielded his eyes from the waning sun. As dusk deepened into nightfall, the children's mysterious humming sound intensified until it became audible to both parents. Lisa now felt a low rhythmic vibration through the soles of her shoes, a sensation that seemed to pulsate from an indeterminate source. An inexplicable dread settled over them as they huddled in the faint pool of illumination provided by the SUV's interior lights. At approximately 9:30 p.m., a Navajo Nation police officer finally spotted their vehicle and facilitated their rescue. When recounting their experience later, each member of the family described chilling anomalies from their 5-hour ordeal. Shifting landscapes where the colors seemed alive, synchronized lights gliding across the sky, a haunting melody that swelled and faded unpredictably, and above all else, a suffocating sensation of being observed by something hidden just beyond their sightline. Even now, when asked about those events under Canyon Del's vast skies, none of them can provide clear answers, only lingering questions and nagging instincts that what took place defies logic entirely. What the family never disclosed to the responding officer, only revealing it weeks later during a conversation with a researcher specializing in unexplained phenomena, was the eerie moment when all 4 of them observed a mysterious figure standing silently on a ridge nearby. The figure was gaunt and unnaturally tall, its proportions disturbingly off against the fading light of dusk. It lingered in their view for only a few seconds before vanishing without movement. The officers' report noted that the Mitchells appeared profoundly shaken, despite there being no signs of tampering with their vehicle. Their story remained consistent across multiple interviews. The day after the incident, the Mitchell family continued their journey to Denver, but they avoided Highway 191 for good, opting instead to take a longer, alternate route whenever traveling in the Southwest. This unsettling event occurred in early October 2017. Around the same time, University of New Mexico graduate student Emily Torres was conducting field research for her thesis on ancestral Puebloan migration patterns. Focused and meticulous, Torres had been exploring sections of the Navajo Nation to document and analyze neglected archaeological sites. On one particular outing, she planned to investigate petroglyphs about 15 miles southeast of Chinle, near the now infamous Highway 191. As a seasoned hiker with years of fieldwork experience in the harsh southwestern terrain, Torres took every precaution, adhering strictly to safety protocols. Her research advisor received her last scheduled check-in call at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday, during which she outlined her plan to explore a remote site she had identified using aerial imagery. By 6 p.m., however, Torres failed to appear at her designated pickup point. Her rental car was discovered parked off Highway 191. Her research equipment and water bottles left behind inside the vehicle. Missing from her belongings were her camera, notebook, and the day pack she carried on all her excursions. A search effort was launched immediately. Navajo Nation search and rescue teams scoured the area for 3 days. The rugged landscape, with its deep canyons, jagged cliffs, and labyrinthine passages, offered ample places for an injured individual to become concealed. Yet as the operation progressed, it became clear that Torres's disappearance didn't fit the usual framework of a lost hiker. On the second day of the search and rescue coordinator Thomas Wilson stumbled upon the first anomaly, a peculiar stone spiral in a remote canyon 3 miles from Torres's vehicle. This spiral, nearly 20 feet in diameter, struck Wilson as unnervingly precise. Each rock appeared deliberately placed at identical intervals, forming a meticulously crafted pattern. Strangely, no records of this formation existed in earlier archaeological surveys, nor did Torres mention such a feature in her notes. What unsettled Wilson even more was the apparent newness of the structure. There was no sign of weathering or natural growth on or around it, as though it had just been created. While photographing the spiral for documentation, Wilson admitted to feeling an intense sense of being watched by an unseen presence lurking along the canyon walls. The next clue came on day 3 of the search when one team member located Torres's camera at the face of a cliff 5 miles from where her vehicle had been found. Remarkably, the camera itself was undamaged, but its memory card was gone. An exhaustive search of the surrounding area failed to uncover either the missing card or her research notebook. The strangest discovery came later that same day when a volunteer found a lone footprint in a dry creek bed. The print matched Torres's hiking boots in both size and tread pattern. What made this particular find deeply unsettling was its location, facing away from her vehicle toward an even more isolated and challenging stretch of terrain. No other tracks accompanied it, no signs of approach or departure, just one solitary imprint in the soft earth, surrounded by undisturbed ground. These puzzling discoveries left investigators grappling with more questions than answers about Emily Torres's disappearance, a mystery that remains unresolved to this day. Emily Torres was never found. Her disappearance remains an open case with the Navajo Nation Police Department, officially categorized as missing under unknown circumstances. However, what the report omits are the eerie accounts that emerged from local residents during the initial search. In the days after her disappearance, several individuals living near Highway 191 reported strange phenomena. Unusual lights were seen dancing in the night sky, their movements defying conventional explanation. Other residents described hearing unsettling chanting carried on gusts of wind, though the source of the sounds remained elusive. One particularly chilling account came from an elderly woman who claimed to have seen Torres walking with a towering figure near the canyon, where a mysterious stone spiral was later discovered. When questioned about why she hadn't come forward sooner, the woman explained that she hadn't known Torres was missing at the time. She had assumed the woman was accompanied by one of the medicine men who occasionally worked in the area. Yet when shown photographs of local medicine men, she shook her head. Whoever was with her, she quietly insisted, was not human. On a frigid February night in 2015, Deputy Samuel II of the Navajo Nation Police Department was on patrol along Highway 191, as he had been for much of his 11-year tenure. It was a biting -12 degrees Fahrenheit, with a thin layer of snow dusting the desert floor when his police radio crackled to life. Unit 47, we have a 1057 report at mile marker 512, came the dispatcher's voice, using police code for a strange light sighting. Multiple callers reporting unusual phenomena. Can you respond? Acknowledging the call, Deputy 2 headed to the reported location. While such reports weren't uncommon in this stretch of remote land, they usually came from tourists rather than locals. Arriving at the scene, he saw 3 vehicles parked on the shoulder of the road. A small group of people stood in the cold night air, gesturing toward the western sky. Among them were 2 local ranchers and a truck driver who frequently hauled goods through the area. What seems to be going on? Deputy 2 asked, his breath clouding in the icy air. One of the ranchers pointed toward a mesa roughly 2 miles away. Started about an hour ago, the man said. Lights, moving in ways planes don't move. Deputy 2 turned his eyes toward the mesa and immediately saw what had compelled these men to call for help. A cluster of luminous orbs shone in the distance, their erratic movements eliminating without question any possibility that they might simply be aircraft or fixed lights on structures. They performed sharp vertical ascents, abrupt right-angled turns, and darted across the sky at seemingly impossible speeds, all without generating noise. Grabbing his radio, Deputy 2 called in a report. Dispatch, this is Unit 47. I can confirm multiple light sources at mile marker 512. Their movement patterns do not match any known aircraft or natural phenomena. Are there any active military operations in this area? The response was swift but unsurprising. Negative. No military activity recorded. No authorized flights scheduled. Over the next 40 minutes, Tu's concern grew as he carefully documented the bizarre lights, using both his patrol car's dash camera and his personal cell phone to record video. Through binoculars, he observed them with greater detail. They seemed to communicate with each other through orchestrated movement and rapid color changes, shifting in pulses from white to blue to red and back again in sequences that felt too purposeful to be random. Then, the encounter took an even stranger turn. One of the lights abruptly broke formation and began speeding directly toward Highway 191. Tu estimated its speed at roughly 300 miles per hour, yet marveled at its silence. Neither engine noise nor air disturbance accompanied its motion. The group on the roadside grew visibly unnerved. Even the truck driver suggested they should leave before something went wrong. "Stay where you are," Deputy Tu instructed firmly. His tone carried authority, though internally he could feel his own apprehension rising. "We don't know what we're dealing with." As the object drew closer, it became clear this wasn't a standard aircraft. A grim assertion solidified as its form became visible. It was a flawless sphere radiating stark, brilliant white light. The sphere emitted no sound, left no discernible trail behind it, and cast no shadow upon the snow-covered ground. Time seemed suspended in an unspoken tension as all eyes locked on this inexplicable visitor to their quiet desert wilderness. It came to a halt roughly 100 yards from their location, hovering in eerie silence at an altitude of about 50 feet. For a full 2 minutes it hung motionless in the air, casting an ethereal glow across the desert landscape. The snow-covered ground below took on an otherworldly appearance, bathed in its unearthly light. Then, without warning, it shot upward at an impossible speed, vanishing into the night sky. At that instant, the other lights scattered across the mesa blinked out simultaneously, leaving nothing but an empty, inky darkness overhead. Officer So finalized his report, marking the time of the strange encounter as 1:27 a.m. He conducted interviews with the 3 witnesses, carefully documenting their statements and contact information. The following day, while reviewing footage from his dash-mounted camera, he made a chilling discovery. Although the video clearly captured the distant lights on the mesa, it failed to record any sign of the sphere when it approached their position. The footage did show the witnesses gazing upward, their faces illuminated by some unseen source, yet the sphere itself was conspicuously absent, replaced only by an impenetrable void. So submitted his findings under Case File 15-11902, categorizing the event as an unexplained aerial phenomenon. He chose not to speak publicly about what had transpired, though those close to him noticed a subtle shift in his behavior. Going forward, he carried a high-powered camera on every patrol along Highway 191, perhaps hoping for another chance to document what he'd seen. This bizarre incident occurred on the night before Halloween in 2013, at KNDN radio station in Shiprock. The annual broadcast of scary stories was well underway. For over 20 years, Robert Chi, the station manager and program host, had cultivated a loyal following in New Mexico's Four Corners region with his smooth voice and dedication to community-focused programming. The Halloween tradition allowed listeners to phone in and share personal accounts of eerie encounters and unexplained events. Over time, this program had built up a surprising level of local popularity. That evening was no exception. As callers shared spooky tales from across the reservation, Chi started to detect a peculiar thread running through their stories. Many referenced experiences along Highway 191, particularly a desolate stretch between Kirtland and Sheep Springs. Their accounts shared striking similarities: mysterious lights, unsettling sounds, and encounters with entities that defied conventional explanation. The first call came at exactly 8:47 p.m. from a truck driver recounting a chilling event. He had been traveling along Highway 191 when he saw what appeared to be a group of people walking in the middle of the road, in a remote area far from any known settlement. "They were just there," the man said with clear unease. "I had to slam on my brakes to avoid hitting them, but when I looked back, they were gone." Chi thanked the man for his story and took the next call. Yet as the evening unfolded, more accounts began pouring in, each one adding new dimensions to the unsettling pattern. Emerging, one woman described driving home after work when strange symbols inexplicably began forming on the condensation of her windshield, even though no one else was in the vehicle or near enough to touch it. Another man recounted how his car had suddenly broken down near mile marker 425. Stranded and enveloped by silent darkness, he began hearing chanting in a language he could not recognize. Though his ears told him he was surrounded, no figures emerged from the void around him. The calls kept coming, each one more baffling than the last. What had begun as a community tradition for sharing ghost stories was now veering into something far more enigmatic and far more disturbing. The most chilling call came at 10:23 p.m. A young man, identifying himself only as Michael, reached out, his voice barely audible. "I'm calling from my car," he murmured, sounding strained. He explained that he was parked along Highway 191, just past the Nageezi turnoff, and was witnessing something peculiar in the desert. "There are figures out here," he said, his voice wavering. "They're tall, too tall, and they're moving in circles almost like they're performing some kind of ritual." The station host, Chi, quickly asked for more details. As Michael described the unsettling sight visible through his windshield, Chi could hear the faint whistle of the wind behind him, and something else, a rhythmic, eerie chanting that seemed to magnify with each passing second. "They're getting closer to the road," Michael stammered, an unmistakable quaver in his voice. I don't think they're human. The way they're moving, it's not right." Then came a sharp intake of breath. Michael's voice turned to panic. "They've seen me," he cried hoarsely. "They're looking right at my car." Chi worked to keep him calm, urging Michael to describe what was happening while simultaneously trying to trace the call. The chanting grew unnervingly louder on the line as Michael's words faltered in terror. "Dear God, their faces, they don't have faces. Just smooth skin where eyes and mouth should be," he managed to say before his voice cracked again. Suddenly there was an intrusive sound, fingertips tapping against metal. Chai heard it distinctly over the phone, accompanied by Michael whispering shakily, "They're surrounding my car. I'm locked in, but I don't think that matters." The tapping became more aggressive, climbing from the car's body to its windows, forming what seemed like deliberate patterns on the glass. Michael's voice broke through again. "They're trying to get in. I don't know what to do." The call abruptly ended with a violent crash followed by silence. Chai kept the line open for several minutes, calling out Michael's name repeatedly into the void, but there was no response. The next morning, Chi alerted the Navajo Nation Police Department about the alarming incident. Officers searched the exact location Michael described, but found no signs of an abandoned vehicle, no footprints in the sand, no evidence of anything or anyone at all. Worse still, the station's call log had only recorded a partial number from Michael's phone, leaving the investigators with no way to trace it or locate him. Chi never uncovered what truly happened to Michael that night. Over the following weeks, however, he received numerous anonymous calls from individuals who claimed to have heard similar chants while driving along Highway 191 after dark. That fateful night marked a pivotal moment for KNDN's Halloween program, transforming it into the station's most infamous episode. The story spread wide among listeners, many of whom vowed never again to drive that stretch of highway alone or after nightfall. For years afterwards, Chi continued hosting his annual Scary Stories segment, but nothing ever rivaled the dread of Michael's call on that October evening in 2013. Highway 191 remained elusive and mysterious, stretching across land rich with ancestral memory and unexplained phenomena. America's vast terrain has many such places where history stretches deep into ancient foundations and where humanity feels like a visitor crossing into realms that defy understanding. Highway 191 serves as one of these corridors, a thin line traversing a space seemingly steeped in the supernatural. It's where past and present collide, where modernity brushes against ancient spirits lingering from another time. Reports from police radios, accounts from maintenance crews, and recordings from local broadcasters like Chai each bear witness to eerie encounters that confound reason. These are not simply ghost stories meant for campfires or fanciful urban myths. They are first-hand accounts shared by credible observers who were confronted by forces they couldn't explain. Patterns emerge from within the chaos, abandoned vehicles idling by deserted roads, dancing lights displaying impossible feats of precision. and strange entities manifesting and disappearing without rhyme or reason. Something deliberate seems to pulse beneath these phenomena, an enigmatic intelligence conducting rituals we have yet to grasp. For generations, the Navajo people have told stories of beings that move between worlds. Their wisdom suggests profound truths about boundaries, about what lies beyond, and what can sometimes slip through the veil of our reality. Yet in today's world, as ancient lore meets modern technology and law enforcement tools, something fundamental appears to shift. As ancient pathways interweave with modern highways, a deeper mystery emerges, a silence that follows in the wake of these encounters, a silence heavy and pregnant with meaning and unanswered questions, perhaps more haunting than anything spoken aloud. Law enforcement officers, trained to observe and record with precision, often find themselves filing reports that conclude with a simple yet confounding phrase, unexplained phenomena. Maintenance crews stumble upon tracks that defy classification, failing to match any known species. Radio hosts receive eerie calls that abruptly end in silence, leaving behind only questions. These are not tales with tidy resolutions or clear-cut answers. They are moments when the seemingly ordinary world momentarily reveals something far stranger, leaving behind witnesses forever altered and mysteries that linger well beyond the events themselves. Highway 191 is more than a conduit for vehicles. It has become a modern threshold between realities, a place where the extraordinary doesn't just brush against the everyday, but leaves its mark. If you or someone you know has experienced something unusual, you're invited to share your story below. Each account could help piece together a puzzle that may someday reveal a greater truth. Your testimony matters, especially those moments that feel too surreal or unexplainable to mention in casual conversation. The Midnight Files continues its mission to collect and catalog stories like these from across the country, archiving them as evidence that strengthens the case. We are not alone in what we perceive to be ordinary existence. Even on the familiar stretches of our highways, the inexplicable hides in plain sight. Tonight's exploration into Highway 191 is just one fragment of the countless reports tied to this route, a road that refuses to conform to the boundaries of logic and conventional reality. Every report we preserve contributes to a growing body of evidence suggesting that vast aspects of our world remain uncharted and mysterious. While Highway 191 will persist in serving as a vital artery connecting communities, for those who have encountered its inexplicable phenomena, it stands as something far more profound, a liminal space where normalcy bends, the impossible manifests, and the rules of reality seem to falter. The calls to dispatchers will keep coming, and the files will continue to swell with new documentation, threads in a larger narrative, challenging our understanding of what is possible across America's enigmatic landscapes. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Midnight Files. Until next time, stay curious and stay safe.